Hey cats, what's happening? I've been reminiscing again, so another story for you. I had to chuckle when I was thinking back. Uh, you're not a boy unless you play with fire. And I mean, playing with matches or building a little fire or something. As country boys, we grew up in rural Ohio, so building fires was something we do. And we'd be at home, and my mom was not one to coddle us. In fact, every day my mom was like, go outside and play. And that's what we would do. And she had no concern of what we were doing, where we were, until it was dinner time. The rule was just don't be late for dinner. So we had free will to pretty much do whatever trouble we could find. We would go into the garage, and we had this garage that was like a little one-car shed, pretty much. A car could fit in there. Dirt floor. And we would pour gasoline on the floor in a puddle and light that, and then push our Tonka trucks through it, or try riding our bicycles through it. I don't know, way back they used to have like the Hurricane Hell drivers at the fair, and they would jump their car through the hoop of fire. So, we tried to relive that with our bicycles, riding through the fire on the floor of the garage. Back in those days, and some people still do this, but we burned our rubbish. So we had a 55-gallon drum, which we called the burning barrel, and we'd punch holes in the side of it, and then all the paper products got burned in the burning barrel, whereas all the glass, metal, and plastics and everything got dumped over the ravine down towards the over the back of the property there. So as kids, somebody got this brainstorm, it was probably me, to start burning plastic. And so we'd collect plastic from the dump and find a place where we could light it on fire, and then just keep throwing more plastic on the fire, old dishwasher detergent bottles and anything that was plastic went on the fire until we had this big bubbling cauldron of molten, melted, flaming plastic. And we'd poke sticks in it and play with it, and probably got a few third-degree burns from hot melted plastic. But then we figured out that we could find the aerosol cans, my mom's old Aquanet hairspray cans, and we could throw them into the burning plastic and then go hide behind a tree and wait to see what happened. Now, one of two things would happen. The aerosol bottle would either shoot out a 15-foot flame like a flamethrower torch, or the can would just literally explode with this huge explosion that would send plastic splattering everywhere and shrapnel of metal. That was great entertainment for some boys who didn't have anything better to do. And luckily we weren't maimed or injured in that process. I was probably in my early teens, 13, 14 years old, and the neighbor boy and I discovered that one of the neighbors had dragged their Christmas tree across into the brush field across the street. Well, it was springtime, so by that time the Christmas tree was pretty well dried out, and it had been laying there in the weeds. And what a great opportunity for an inferno. So we got some matches and we lit the Christmas tree on fire. Well, if you've ever seen a Christmas tree burn, it's amazing. They go up like gasoline. They go up very quickly, very hot, huge flames shooting up, 15 feet in the air. And it started the grass on fire around the Christmas tree. So the weeds in the field started burning. Well, it was too hot for us to get anywhere near to stomp out the weeds, and there was nothing we could do but watch in panic as this ring of fire continued to get wider and wider around this inferno of this burning Christmas tree. Well, before we knew it, we had a burning circumference of about 40 feet around, and it was really taking off, and there was little we could do. So I ran that way and went home. He ran that way and went home, and we watched out the window as the field began to be consumed with this horrible brush fire. One of the neighbors must have saw the smoke and the flames, called the fire department, and they were quick to be on the scene. Now, the scary thing was that a couple hundred yards down into the field was the gas well. There was one of those old plunger type oil derricks down there and there was two great big oil tanks that sat there with other equipment. And their fear was if the fire got there, it could even cause worse consequences with all that oil that was around there in those oil tanks. The fire department was swift in putting the fire out, though, and everything was saved. And I don't know why they didn't come to my house, but the fire chief went to my buddy's house, knocked on the door. He was hiding in his bedroom. His mom pulled him out of the bedroom to talk to the fire chief, and boy, he got a good reaming. Whereas he didn't squeal on me, he didn't snitch on me. So that was, him and I were pretty tight with that. But somehow I got away scot-free and didn't get in trouble for that. Probably the best story I have, though, is one of my younger brothers and his buddy had found an old Playboy magazine, and they hid it in the barn. Well, I guess childhood guilt overwhelmed them, like this isn't something we're allowed to have, so they decided they would burn it, and they lit it on fire, and they burned it into a pile of crisp coals, and they left it. Little did they realize that the fire was still smoldering, and it caught the barn on fire. Well, when I say it caught the barn on fire, I think it caught some straw on fire, and the straw was smoldering. So all this white smoke was billowing out of the windows and the doors of the barn, and they realized, oh my gosh, we've got to call the fire department. Firemen came, and they dragged their hoses into the barn, and they were distinguishing whatever fire was there. The barn wasn't consumed by flames at that point. There was some fire in there, but it was down in the bottom, and it hadn't reached the second floor yet. It was mostly just smoke that had filled the barn. Well, it was then I realized that we used to sneak in there and smoke cigarettes, and I had a coffee can that I had stuck up in the rafter that was full of cigarette butts. So my fear was the fire chief was going to find the coffee can in the rafters after their inspection and realize that somebody was smoking in the barn, and that's what caused the fire. I didn't want that to happen. I knew if I got caught with a coffee can of cigarette butts in the barn, my dad would be asking a million questions, and I'd probably get my butt tanned with the belt. So I made a spur-of-the-moment decision to nonchalantly walk past the firemen. I ran into the door of the barn over the fire hoses with the smoke coming out of the door, and grabbed my coffee can from the rafter and stuck it in my jacket and ran out the door and hightailed it to the woods. The firemen were just looking at me like, where'd this kid come from? What's he doing? Nobody ever asked any questions or anything. I took that thing out in the woods, and I don't know what I did with it, but I disposed of all the evidence, and nobody knew the wiser. But the report came back from the fire chief that he was pretty sure the fire had started from sparks flying from the burning barrel where we burned our trash. And my dad had burned trash a couple hours earlier, and they said, well, one of the sparks probably flew over and got into the window and caught the straw on fire in the barn. So again, nobody was the wiser. None of us kids were ever blamed for that fire. But I still chuckle when I think about that to this day, Could have been a lot worse, could have been serious, but it wasn't. That's my story for today, guys. I hope you like my stories. Be sure to hit the thumbs up. Oh, not the thumbs down. Give me a thumbs up. Somebody always gives me a thumbs down. I'd like to know who that person is. Almost every video I get one thumbs down, but all the rest are thumbs up. You guys like my videos. Share them with your friends. Tell your friends about me. Tell them to give me a look. And subscribe if you haven't yet. Till next time, cats, ride hard, die free. Catch you later. Fire on the mountain, lighting